Alright, so through grading some of your equation of a circle homework, I noticed that some of you might need a little bit more help on it, so I'm making this video so you can reference it as you study for your quiz and your test. So number 1 said, find the equation of a circle that has a center at -2, 5 and a radius of 3. So make sure that, well, I don't want to draw with a crayon here, I don't know why I picked that. Make sure that you remember the equation of a circle, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. I'm just going to review real fast because I've got another video out there. Suppose you have a circle, its center is at h comma k, the radius is r, and any point on the circle is going to be x comma y. So always make sure that whatever you put in for h and k comes from the center and not some other point on the circle. I've seen some of you using the wrong point on some of the other problems on this to put in for h and k. So I'm going to label this hk because they tell me that's the center. This is the radius, that's r. And so as I substitute this in, I get x minus a -2 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 3 squared. Now, anytime you do the equation of a circle, all I ask after you substitute in the center and the radius is to make sure you get rid of minus negatives, make sure you get rid of minus zeros, and make sure you always square the radius. So let's clean it up a little bit. X minus a -2 becomes x plus 2, and this is quantity squared, plus y minus 5 squared, he stays the same, and then square your radius, you get 9. Another common mistake I saw was some of you forgot to put the square up there. Don't forget that, that's important. You get the question wrong otherwise. Number 2 said, what are the center and the radius of this circle? So we're kind of working backwards from what we did on number 1. So you got to ask yourself, when I look at this equation right here, let's see if I can copy that over. That way, because we're going to need on all 5 problems. When I look at this equation, what did I put in for h right here to get a positive 6? Some students accidentally say 6 when they look at this. And remember, I couldn't have put in a 6, because if I put in a 6, I'd have x minus 6. So it's the opposite of what you want to do here. We want to say it must have been a -6, because then we got x minus a -6, which becomes x plus 6. So I know that the h value must be -6. Same thing here, we take the opposite of a -4. We must have put a positive 4 in for k right here. So we got y minus 4. And then you say, what did I put in for r to get 49? I didn't put in 49 because it gets squared. I must have put in the square root of 49, which is 7. So my radius is 7. And my center is -6, 4. For this one, let me drag this problem in the recording area here. It says graph this circle on the graph. So we're going to do the same thing we did on the last problem. We're going to figure out what is the center and the radius, and then it's just a matter of just graphing it. So what did we put in for h to get positive 1? It must have been a -1. And what did we put in for k to get positive 2? It must have been a -2, so that's the center. And what did we put in for r to get 9? Well, the square root of 9 is 3, so the radius must be 3. So make sure when you do this, you graph the center. It makes it a little bit easier when I grade it for me to know that you knew where the center was. Because some of you weren't writing down the center. That wasn't what the question asked, it just said to graph it. But it helps me to know you identify the center if you put a dot there. So -1, -2. Because I know it's really hard to draw it by hand. And then you're going to draw a circle there with a radius of 3. So you drag that out. That's a radius of 2. Right there's a radius of 3. I know it's hard to draw by hand, so long as I saw like this point, and this point, and this point, and this point, and then you did your best to trace it, I was fine with that. You didn't have to be perfect. Some of you got out your compass and made them look fantastic, so good job on neatness there. All right, this one says, a circle has a center at -4, 2, and it goes through a particular point, -1, 6. What is the equation of the circle? So once again, I want you to label these. This is the center, H, K, and then this is any point on the circle. It's going to be X, Y. Remember, to write the equation of a circle, you need two things. You need to know the center, and you need to know the radius. You have to find out both of those before you can finish the problem. Here they tell me the center, it's -4, 2. So if I were writing the equation of the circle, I'd say, okay, go ahead and substitute these in. It's going to be x minus a -4, which becomes x plus 4, plus y minus 2 squared is equal to the radius squared. Well, I don't know what r is, so I can't leave the problem like this. If you left it like that, you got it wrong. You've got to know that r, you got to put it in there and square it. So I'm going to pick up from here and substitute in my point, -1, 6. And when I substitute that in, -1 plus 4 squared plus 6 minus 2 squared, that gives me the radius squared. Notice my radius is the only unknown value. So -1 plus 4 gives me 3. 6 minus 2 gives you 4. And that equals the radius squared. So 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. And so I get 25 is equal to the radius squared. You can square root this and say, hey, the radius must be 5. But notice that's what we're missing on the blue equation here to finish this problem out. So I'm just going to substitute it in. So I'll erase that. The r squared goes away. And I know r squared is equal to 25, so I can substitute that back in. And what's written in blue here is my answer. And I'm lagging a little bit, so it made me draw a ridiculous rectangle there. All right, one more. It says the endpoints of a diameter of a circle, let's paste in our equation here, are 0, 5, and 10, 5. Find the equation of the circle. So here I don't know the center and I don't know the radius. So I'm going to start by finding the center of the circle. Remember, the center of the circle, let's draw a visualization of what's going on here. We've got a circle, and I know where the endpoints are. They're at 0, 5, and 10, 5. Oh, so it's a horizontal line. I'll try to make it a little bit accurate. Sometimes when I'm sketching, I really don't care if it looks what it looked like on a graph or not. I just want a visualization. So pretend like that's going through the center here, and the endpoints are at 0, 5, 10, 5. I want to know, how can I get the center of that circle? 0, 5, 10, 5. Remember, since this is the diameter, the midpoint is exactly halfway between the endpoints. So if I use the midpoint formula, I can figure out where the center is. So 0, 5, 10, 5, remember with midpoint we just add up the coordinates and divide by 2. So I get 10 over 2, 10 over 2. So the midpoint is at 5, 5. And that's the center. So once again, just like in the last problem, I can substitute it in. I get x minus 5 squared plus y minus 5 squared is equal to the radius squared. I don't know the radius, so I'm going to have to finish this problem out. Substitute in one of these 2 points. Well, I feel like this is an easier one, so I'm going to substitute in, actually I feel like this one's going to be easier. I'm going to substitute this one in. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to call that x and y and substitute it in. So I ended up with 10 minus 5 quantity squared plus 5 minus 5 quantity squared equals the radius squared. 5 minus 5 is 0. 10 minus 5 gives me 5. And so I get 25 again equals r squared. Won't always equal 25, but it has so far in these 2 cases. So I'm going to go back, erase out that r squared, and then substitute it in. 25. There's my answer. Okay. So a lot of you did really well on this, but a few of you need to just kind of review a little bit. I think some of you made some small algebra mistakes. And so hopefully you get some feedback on that, and watching these videos kind of helped you fill in the gaps there. Let me know if you have any questions. Remember, we want to take care of these mistakes before we get on the quiz. before we get on the test and make them on there. So keep working hard. If you need extra examples, let me know. We can get you some more examples out there. Okay? Thanks for watching.